Thank you very much. And thank you for the intros, because that saved me a couple of minutes as well. Thank you very much for joining us. You'd have heard, I think if you've been here for previous sessions, you'll be hearing lots about some of the themes we're going to talk about, but of course we're getting it from a completely different perspective, because what we've assembled for you, we're going to hear from the retail media owners and the retail media networks with their own point of view on the whole smorgasbord when we start talking about retail media, measurement in-store. We'll be talking about ROAS, no doubt. We'll be talking about should there be more media owners, should there be more like retailers. But I wonder, Laura, if I can start with you, and you're kind of being dubbed the newest retail media network here. Of course, Very has been in the retail media game for over a decade, but just share with us, how did you go about trying to find almost like your USP, your niche? Because this market is now, we heard it in the agency panel, starting to get a bit cluttered. So how do you work out where you guys sit and what you're about?
So I think, as you've referenced, we've been in the market for over 12 years, so not necessarily new in the white space that you're describing. But the relaunch in September for Very Media Group was all about strengthening our proposition and moving from the white space into the pink space as Very as a brand, and really, could you like it? I'm working in the brand team now, getting that in. So really capitalising on our strengths, the data and the creative aspect of what we do at Very Media Group really does set the proposition apart. So that was how we found our pink space in our evolution on the relaunch.
Yeah, pink space for co-op or something slightly different?
Blue space.
Blue space, okay. We see a theme happening.
Well, firstly, well done on the launch. I still remember last year the effort involved to launch a retail media network, and then to get the market to understand that clear and different proposition is tricky. When we launched, we knew we couldn't just be another grocery media network, so we needed that point of difference, but being different isn't enough. You've got to have a difference that is meaningful to advertisers, and not just now, but in 3 to 5 years' time as well, because you need that strategic runway. And it's a bit of a risk to actually have a different proposition. There's a pack that's growing massively in the market, and you're saying we're not like those, we're over here, and you can risk being boutique, niche, or a nice to have. And I think a few retail media networks around the world have just put their media inventory and data assets on a shelf, and they haven't thought long and hard like Very have about their clear and compelling proposition in the market. I read an article that empathised with retailers doing this, and it was called There's No Gold Without the Rush, right? And it was saying, well, of course they are going to go after the commercial benefit, but I think there's been talk of consolidation, and eventually that will happen, and if you haven't got a clear why us, you're going to fall below that line and not get picked, right? So our difference is convenience, and we landed on that quite due diligently, because we looked at ourselves from the eyes of advertisers, and that actually created some opportunity, because all the things that are really tough from retail and convenience are actually a benefit in advertisers. We share our shoppers with everyone else, so they compare our prices, our promotion, our range all the time, but it also means when they're in a co-op seeing our ads, they'll be in a rival store soon after, and they might buy from there. So we turned the retailer assets into media assets, and I think that's what all of us seem to have done, and we've all got our own propositions, but it's hard.
Yeah, it's fascinating, because I think we were hearing on the agency panel, they're saying, well, actually, we would quite like you all to be a little bit more similar, so we can get into standards and definitions, and there's some interoperability, we can start to compare you. You are, of course, a year in. It seems crazy that you only launched a year ago. Anything that surprised you in that first year, or you thought wasn't really expecting that, or has gone better than what you thought?
I think what the industry, especially in the marketing media, really liked was someone doing something different. Right. I think there was this sort of herd mentality of retailers around the world, and a lot of it was supermarkets as well, so the industry was used to supermarket, trolley media, 27 aisles, pushing up and down, big basket size. So I think what resonated was this different approach, and being quite brave and bold, because we could have just said we're another grocery retailer, and we could have just tried to ride on everyone's coattails, but we purposely said we're different, we're over here, we belong at the table with everyone else, not in the AOB, right?
We can't get away with saying year of retail media. We're not going to say that. That's sort of been and gone. Could be the year of in-store, though, potentially, especially digital in-store. You've made some pretty big bets at Asda and have been forthcoming with what you've got. Is this the kind of the frontier now? Is everyone going to be talking about in-store, John?
Yeah, so, I think it's one of the big frontiers kind of thing, but certainly for us it's a big bet. So we launched LS11 last year off the back of kind of many years as AMP, and one of the big things we talked to our supplier base about in the industry was that we wanted to digitise the stores and kind of go big in that. We acquired a whole bunch of convenience stores a year or so ago, and they've been easier to put digital assets into, kind of smaller stores, 1 or 2 screens, and we were refitting those stores anyway. Whereas the larger stores, a much bigger investment for us and lots more to consider, and a lot of those we're putting screens into a store that's already kind of fit out. So we've done a few tests. What's been really positive for us is that we've seen positive customer feedback. We've seen growth for the stores versus control groups, so the screens are actually benefiting customers and they're picking up more products, and we've seen really strong results for the advertisers as well. So it's kind of working for everyone. And so for us now, it's given us the confidence to kind of go bigger with a screen rollout in the larger stores, but we're now looking at that from, it can't just be replacing cardboard that was already in the store and just putting a digital asset there. We have to therefore get the measurement right, so we're looking at options for that. We have to put the right content on the screens. It has to work for Asda with the right combination of branded content and Asda's content on those screens. So all of those things are in consideration as we roll out. But the plan in second half of this year and into next year is to go much bigger in that digitalisation of the store.
Maybe it's an obvious question, but what is it giving you that's more than the cardboard stuff? Because it isn't just what you've got before, plus it can now be digital and therefore measurable and targetable and that stuff. What else is it kind of doing for you in that sense? Does it open up more to non-endemic stuff, for example? Are there other things?
So at the right areas of the store, we would allow other brands, non-endemics, to use some of those assets, but in other areas we'll be very clear who can use those. On a branded gondola end, as an example, only the brand that's underneath that, that fixture will be able to, have some of that advertising space. Some of the other things I think it does are allows you to use more technology. So both from, you can use targeting, so knowing who's in front of the screen in a sort of non-creepy way. You can do more with being more creative around different times of the day. You can say, it's breakfast, so pick up this product for breakfast, and in the afternoon change the messaging, or if it rains you can kind of change the messaging on the screen. So just allows you to be more creative and dynamic with the content as well.
Probably a production timeline sort of cut in half as well. You can be really reactive with
there's
some
so
of
many
the stuff.
benefits of it, and stopping producing all of the cardboard and changing it over every few weeks as well.
Big tick. We're still talking about sustainability. Some people in the world, some big players in the world aren't, but we are still important to us. Steph, we should talk about first-party data, which is another one on the retail media bingo card. If you're taking points that you can start to tick off. Just paint a picture for us, I guess, in terms of from a Boots point of view, just how critical that is for your business and I guess the clients that you're talking to.
Yeah, definitely. Again, it's a really good question. I think we're all sat here today, and there's been multiple talks actually, which I've had the pleasure of sitting in on today, where people have spoke about the challenges that we're facing as a media measurement kind of industry, whether that is changes in privacy policies and being kind of data first, or signal strength and so on and so forth. So first party data is something that definitely at Boots, and I'm sure for all you guys as well, is incredibly important for us, and that's also why we've seen in the industry of the past 5 years big loyalty programs start to come on the rise, initiatives, campaigns. Pete, our CMO, spoke about a big campaign we did a couple of years ago with Price Advantage, and starting to bring and build that ad card database. So I think first party data is definitely something that is really, really valuable for both brands and retailers, 100%, in terms of how we do that. But I think the importance of first party data as well, it enables us to have that customer first approach. Again, a key theme that's kind of come out of today from listening to some of the talks. It's understanding that customer behaviour, that purchase intent, and allowing brands to have that lens, which they may not have in other forms of media, and then apply that to their campaigns, which makes it a lot more effective. They're investing in the right place, right time, that then delivers against their objectives that they're trying to do. Yeah.
And are you finding more and more, if you're a strategist, or you're a planner in an agency, or in an advertiser, this kind of stuff is a dream, as you said, not only if you're working on endemic brands that you sell, but if you're selling cars, I mean, there's a whole bunch that your data could tell them about targeting people with cars. I mean, there's so many other applications to it than purely just the targeting.
Absolutely, and I think this is how we evolve first-party data as we go forward. We can't stay still in the industry that we're in. We all know this, right? We have to evolve and we have to move on, and we have to also tailor how we use data smartly, because the way that customers are consuming is so different now. We don't consume in a linear way anymore. There's multiple attributions and touch points that sit as part of this. And so I think where we can harness the power of data, and again, I can see Ollie's in here, he did a talk with LiveRamp and Criteo earlier about the partnership that we've brought on board with those guys to connect really powerful data sets and put them out there for brands, which again, just give a much clearer vision and kind of measurement strategy for them.
And that is a terrific case study where it happens. And I don't want to get into challenges, but sometimes is it, you might work with a client, like your data is kind of supreme in a sense, trying to match that with data that perhaps hasn't got the quality or the depth. Is it bumping up against others? Not all data is equal, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And often you'll be like, oh great, I can have some of this data, I can put it with mine, and then I can go and find this audience. It doesn't quite always...
Yeah, I think kind of coming back to the point I was making earlier, it's about who you decide to partner with. I think it's that strength in data partnership. So, we've made some really key strategic decisions at Boots Media Group and at Boots to partner with real core data partners who serve kind of a purpose. So whether that's the likes of ITV, Sky, Channel 4, our partnerships with LiveRamp, Criteo, so a whole range of people, but we've been really careful about who we've done that with so we can try and get as much quality data to then serve to our brands as possible.
We spent lots of time at the IAB last year working with Google and most of the industry and trying to figure out, demise of third-party cookies. Do you think we're a kind of a market, an industry that's just got our eyes open to it now, and actually retailers are always going to win here because everyone was going to lurch towards first-party, either getting their own or trying to use it. But I mean, we're in a great place going into this year. Having that hasn't kind of we're not having to course correct or anything. If anything, it's sort of helpful to tell a first party.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's a case of course correct. I think it's how we just continue to evolve that, and we don't stay still in this. We have to keep evolving. We have to keep thinking about ways that we can do it in a really data safe way for customers, but also that's of a benefit to us from a business and profitability point of view in engaging brands.
Can we talk about some of the work? Because I often think in digital advertising, what I love about the TV industry, they're so unashamedly love talking about the work, and they go to Cannes and they put it up on big screens and we celebrate this stuff. We don't do it very well in digital, so I just want to talk about the work a little bit. And I'm not talking about Cannes-worthy stuff particularly, although it might be, but just brilliant, effective work, because it is very, very measurable. I've asked sort of all of you to come with some of the favourite things that you've worked on. I wonder what you've sort of picked out of your treasure trove, Dean.
Yeah, well, I was trying to think of, all retailer campaigns now should have first-party data. That's the hygiene factor, whether it's using the till data for store-based targeting or the shopper and loyalty and e-commerce data for those addressable audiences. So I'm really liking the stuff that sits on top of that builds on those foundations, whether that's creatively or using some of the unique assets of the retailer themselves. So we did a great campaign, I think, with Stella around their Wimbledon sponsorship, where we did full store takeovers that were mapped against all the different routes that attendees of Wimbledon could take. So you integrated the event with the sponsorship, with the unique locations of convenience, and you saw amazing upticks in the sales as well, but actually it did a job for that sponsorship awareness as well. And then there was also an opportunity to match some of the socio-demographics of the people that are associated with Wimbledon across the rest of our store estate, and start testing different ways you can latch the brand onto that sponsorship, that association. So that was one of the key campaigns that we did that I think mixed data with unique assets and stretched it as well.
Early doors, have we said, but you must have some good ones up your sleeve.
Yes, I think I'll try and give a different shape of an answer to what Dean's given, but we've been partnering with Shark for over 3 years. So a really trusted relationship that we've established with those guys as a brand. And what we've really tried to focus on over the past 12 months with the team is around broadening the ecosystem that Shark sits within. So not only the above the line activity that happens, but the mid-funnel activity, but equally also where the brand shows up to engage with new audiences, which may not specifically have an ROI against it. However, it's introducing the brand into a space which you might not necessarily expect to see it. So the campaign that the team delivered around the O2, attending one of the events at the O2, and we invited, over 20 influencers to the event, just to get content and awareness and brand awareness out there for the brand. So that was a change in dynamic for those guys. But as I said, that sort of omni-channel opportunities that may or may not have an ROI against it, but is important in, perception, engagement, new customers, and equally doing something new that's innovative for a brand. So that was really successful for Sharp, and one to build on.
Yeah. It feels like already we're sort of going beyond this conversion or this kind of ROAS thing we often get hooked on. Tell us about the campaign you're thinking of, John, and what those metrics were that were important.
Yeah, so we've recently launched our first-party data solution called Asda Access, and one of the first campaigns we did was with a well-known pet food brand. Bianca, I think, talked about it in one of the SMG sessions earlier, but I'll come at it from a slightly different angle. So they wanted to target kind of the category buyers, the usual kind of, lapsed customers, as well as their own customers and the competitors. And they looked at that from an off-site perspective, where we put the ads on Meta properties. But what they also did was did a big in-store campaign, and we tested it in different regions where we did both, or we only did one of either the in-store or the off-site. And what we saw is where we did both the in-store and the off-site, that the off-site drove 11% further store uplift by having both of those combined together. So again, it's given us confidence to kind of further roll that proposition out, and just start to see sort of great results from combining different media propositions.
And it's super. We were hearing Ian on the agency panel talking earlier, like, when you look at when you look at the dominance of Amazon, that's the missing bit. It's always going to be the store. It's very hard to do that bit. And what about you, Steph?
Wow, I mean, there's so many, it's really hard to pick a favourite, isn't it, when you start kind of thinking through them. I think one of my big standouts that the Boots Media Group team worked on is probably the Dyson Air Straight launch that we did. So again, that was where Boots were given the exclusive on the product, so we had a limited window to really, attract those customers and bring them in. And an absolutely fantastic campaign, infused by first-party data in everything that we did, but it was full funnel in everything that we did as well. So there was a big awareness piece, we did a big takeover at the Outernet, we had influencers there, talent there, so it was absolutely fantastic. But equally what we did was we tapped into kind of shoppers and people who had that intent into shopping into Dyson and Dyson products and hair products, and we got them to sign up for a waiting list. They were then invited to that, and then they were retargeted, and then there was also a big media campaign that supported and went around that. And just a fantastic example of that full 360 execution of a brand and retailer coming together, really maximising it. And again, it just went down phenomenally, really, really well.
It just feels very, very multi-layered, and I think it sort of maybe gets me onto my next point, which is, what are those sort of misconceptions or sort of lack of awareness that maybe you come up against? Maybe talk about some of the partnerships that you've been involved with, but a lot of people thinking you can buy some on-site stuff and it's product listing and it kind of looks a bit like search and creatively I can't do much. I mean, there's so much more to it, but talk to us about some of the partnerships that Boots are involved.
Yeah, no, definitely, so much more. So I think that in the world that we live in, to your point earlier, retail media, it's about what's the extra stuff that you can offer, where can you add that point of difference. So again, I think our kind of partnership that we have with Love Island is a fantastic, again, collaboration to bring in those retailers and kind of think about how we do that kind of broad piece of kind of being the official beauty sponsor in the villa, getting people out there and just kind of giving them that exposure which they wouldn't be able to get elsewhere unless they kind of came to Boots. So that point of differentiation.
Yeah, what are you coming up against, Dean? What sort of surprises people when you say to them, well, we can do that sort of stuff, or that's possible, or what are the misconceptions?
I think online awareness in the market, like hidden gems and things like that, is like the agency said, everyone's overwhelmed with information. Like, we're all talking to similar people and just getting them to understand our proposition's hard enough, and we're all releasing innovations and new products and things like that. But I suppose the one that I quite like to lean on with Co-op is the diversity of our stores. So we talk about having 2,500 stores, 70% of the UK live within 2 miles, one in every postal code area, but the nuance is that each store is very unique. Because they're small, we have to understand who lives in that area, who moves through that area, what missions they are, anything from their affluence, their gender, their interests, their tastes. And that means if you reverse it out from a brand perspective, not only have you got coverage. You've got hyper-local targeting, but on other richer targeting metrics. We have brands coming to us for Eid celebrations, for sporting events, for university campuses, service stations. We've got one store on an island in Scotland, and it's the only store
That's
on that
incredible.
island. So if you want to reach them, we
much can you
are the only media owner on that island in Stornoway. So it's that richness of store. And you don't get that, I don't think, with supermarkets, that are these warehouses that stock a huge portfolio of products. Our stores are a reflection of the people in that area. That's quite powerful, and that's one of our, I think, hidden gems.
Big supermarkets are good as well. Big warehouses, supermarkets are good as well. What do you bump into and you sort of think, well, you know, we're beyond that, we can do it? What's some of the things that maybe the awareness just isn't there?
Yeah, so I think it is kind of around our audience, and it's been talked about quite a lot today, like why are you different? And obviously there's the convenience angle. Asda does have 27 of the 50 largest stores in the country, so we are traditionally a northern big box retailer, but moved more into convenience, grown significantly online. So I think it is the breadth of our stores represented across the UK, now with our rewards platform, that we've got this first party data set, which we were quite new to over the last couple of years. So Asda never had a loyalty program, and now we've got that loyalty program and large customer data set. We can really use that to target that audience. And the Asda audience is heavily indexed on working class families. If you look at us versus any of the other retailers, it is that. So any brand who wants to really access the working class families of the UK, Asda is the best for that.
So Jerry Springer's final thought, I guess, is with you.
No
Laura.
pressure.
What are some of those misconceptions, or where do you think the awareness is a little bit lacking, where you'd like to see it? You know, if we come back in a year's time, that people are like, oh God, yeah, that's great. I can understand that Very can do all this kind of thing.
I think, probably a misconception. I'll try and take a more creative angle so that there's variety in the answers. But we create a co-creation process with the brands, and if you think about from the diversity of the assortment, we're an online retailer, multiple divisions, fashion, sports, home, beauty. There's a diversity in the brands that we work with. But essentially, as Very Media Group, and I feel really passionately about this, as do the team, you become custodians for the brands that you're working for. So not only are you establishing your own brand identity in the market, and we've done a lot of work on that for Very over the past 12 months with the new brand platform that we are delivering, but equally you're a custodian to the brands that you're working for as well. So establishing that co-creation process is really important, and ensuring that the right communication's there, the right feedback loop is there, because I think people underestimate the hard work that goes into every brand campaign that we deliver, and equally the sign-off process that goes through with brand campaigns varies depending on the degree of scale, whether it's big omni-channel activity or whether it's more targeted. So I think that for us is something that's underestimated, should I say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much indeed. I wish we had more time. We've got so many questions. It was awesome. Dean, it feels like, is committed to come back next year. He's going to talk about this Co-op Stornoway campaign that they're going to run, Takeover. If you're an advertiser and you want to do a takeover of Stornoway, come and see Dean afterwards. Big hand for the panel. Thank you very much for listening.